Several years ago, the president of the association, with some urging from a few key people in the organization, Tom Santulli, created the Egg Task Force. That, there were several issues that we were looking at that time, as we still are, some of which are, the low prices, consumer advocacy. As that transitioned over a couple of years, we now have a standing committee on agriculture, which we're going to have a meeting here today to talk about the issues. And a couple of the issues we're going to talk about are the facets associated with the state budget, which include funding for several key programs, namely probably the largest user of state funding would be Cornell University. A major force in agriculture in not only in New York State but across the country as well. Agriculture is the number one economic industry in New York State, believe it or not, even more powerful than Wall Street. So that being the number one industry in the state, it certainly carries nationwide as well.
What are some of the biggest issues facing agriculture in New York?
Price of product. I know myself, being a dairy farmer, price of milk continues to hover at unsustainable levels. And, it's just, there's so many products that are made from milk, butter, ice cream, cheese. It's just hard to fathom why, the market continues to be such a wild fluctuation, but tends to be more down than up.
Tell us about the need for more people to get into, particularly young people, to get involved in agriculture as a career.
Well, there are a lot of different careers that are associated with agriculture, not just actually working the ground or milking cows or taking care of livestock. The support industries, the feed, fertilizer, seed, communications, IT is all very important and continues to be a big part of what agriculture needs in order to maintain its national presence statewide, nationally, and locally.
Before we get started, the Public Safety Committee is very important to NYSAC, and public safety and not only covers the county jail and the sheriff's law enforcement services, but also our court security, our probation departments, alternatives to incarceration, and our Office of Emergency Management. And all of those things are very important. And we do so much in county government related to public safety that this committee does a lot of good work.
What are some of the biggest issues in public safety facing sheriffs and county government throughout the state of New York?
Well, we continue to have to deal with several areas of what they often refer to as unfunded mandates. And we've got things, more burdens are being placed on our probation departments now to do more services, but with less money being refunded by the state. Same goes true with some of the county jail services that we're mandated to do. And so we're very concerned about this loss of revenue.
What would you like people to keep in mind about the importance of public safety throughout the state of New York 52 weeks of the year?
Well, public safety is one of the first initial parts of government. Government is for the protection of its people, its public safety, and its public health. And those are very paramount to government county services.
Our seminar today deals with the Medicaid and Human Services portion of the program. We're actually quite pleased to report that the Medicaid administrative cap is being preserved in the budget as it's proposed, so please make sure everyone fights and make sure that there's no changes in that Medicaid administrative dollars for all the local districts. That actually will give you stability in your Medicaid program, and as everybody knows from recent history, that's a program that you can have lots of ups and downs, and you really can't budget that logically through any amount of time. And this stabilized out all of our risks that we had at the county level. This is actually one of your greatest liability issues in county government. folks who need health insurance, we all become responsible for that if there's an emergency. And this particular program has really stabilized it out, so your risk and your liability, you can actually count and figure out and able to, for the first time ever, to budget for that. So so the Medicaid cap needs to be preserved, and we need to go forward knowing exactly what our weekly shares are going to be.
The state budget is for some increased funding for these home and community-based services. Our workshop today is on the future of senior services in New York. That's a lot dealing with home and community-based services, critical programs that keep older New Yorkers at home and help their family caregivers take care of them.
With an aging population in the state of New York, what is your recommendation to county government?
So what we are trying to do right now is increase funding in the state budget for services that are provided by the counties through the State Office for the Aging, and these are really simple programs like home and community-based services, Meals on Wheels, other home-delivered meal programs, access to transportation to go to doctor's offices, things that are really simple, help people stay at home longer, out of nursing homes where they're spending Medicaid dollars, and really just keep them contributing to the local economy and in their homes where they want to be.
The biggest priority continues to be mandates from the state government that are unfunded. That seems to be the biggest issue. We have a resolution once again today on that issue. Also, the taxation of internet sales tax. Local business, small businesses are losing business because of internet sales, and so another major issue is to attempt for the state to impose a tax on internet companies like Amazon and those types of large companies. That would create needed revenues for the counties. We have our expenses keep going up, but revenues seem to decline. So the biggest thing would be increased revenues to balance our budgets. I can speak for Saratoga County, is still doing well, but I think there's a lot of upstate counties that are not doing well, having to increase taxes in order to maintain their revenue source. I think maybe downstate may be a little bit different. Employment is higher down there. We have higher unemployment upstate. So, but I think overall New York is doing okay, but we can always do better.
Over to our esteemed presenters.
Our workshop today is the topic of shared services, which is really local government working together to try to save taxpayers' money and provide a more efficient delivery of those services.
How does it work?
Well, it works in a lot of ways, and I wouldn't say there's a one-size-fits-all, but it starts from the ground up with some good ideas on how we can work together and share, build upon our strengths, and try to ultimately save taxpayers' money in the long run.
Give us some examples of how this is working in New York.
Sure. Well, Montgomery County, for example, has a whole host of initiatives, 11 to be exact, that we're working on right now. Everything from village dissolutions to sharing of equipment to sharing of salt storage facilities. We really have a wide variety of initiatives we're working on, and it all depends on what the needs are in the local municipalities. So there certainly isn't a one-size-fits-all, but you really look at what the situation is on the ground and try to find solutions that can work for everyone.
How does this benefit county officials and taxpayers?
Well, everything we can do to help stay under the tax cap is something that's incredibly important. And, with the rising costs of local government and some of the mandates that come down from the state, these initiatives are really imperative to help us keep moving forward and still deliver the services that we need to deliver.
But they always assure us.
The title of our workshop is The Impact of the Tax Cap and What Would Happen if It Were to Become Permanent, and the impacts on county governments in New York State. We did a survey in April of 2017 of all local governments in New York State to look at the impacts of the tax cap, and we found that it's leading to a reduction in infrastructure funding and a reduction in long-term planning for the future economic growth of the state. And so this is quite concerning that the tax cap is having a negative impact on our ability to fund critical infrastructure and long-term planning. We also asked local governments if they had recommendations for reforms of the tax cap, and some of the reforms, the most important one was to exempt capital expenditures so that we could address that infrastructure problem, and also to exempt expenditures for emergencies and disaster response, which obviously we need to do, and to exempt pensions, and then to include in the growth factor the really important nonprofit sector. We have a lot of meds and eds in our economy, and we need to include the growth of that critical sector in our economy in our estimations of the growth factor. And right now, those are excluded.
One of the big issues that we have facing all the counties is the opioid problem that we have with the drugs and overdosing, and it's a problem for our jails, it's a problem for our communities, and it's a big issue for every single county in the state right now.
What can local government do at the county level on this issue?
Well, right now we're working with our health departments, we're working with our sheriff's departments, and we're trying to bring plans together, and you know, it's a tough nut to crack. It's not an easy one to solve.
What assistance would be beneficial from both Albany and Washington?
The assistance that we need is the money that needs to come into our areas to help fight these issues. That's one of the problems when you don't have enough money to do the housing for people and to have programs to help them get away from the drug problems. That's one of the issues.